The protection of sovereignty, and I've heard this time and time and time again through history and people here. It says Canada doesn't want to look like a U.S. puppet or a lackey or doing the backing of the United States. I wouldn't want that in any relationship, neither would you. Okay, that's important. So the big question and concern about Canada protecting its sovereignty and not losing its identity, and you don't in any relationship, doesn't matter what it is, you don't want to lose your identity in the relationship, okay, whether it's a marriage or whatever. And this relationship, proudly to say, begun in my home state, in Ogdensburg, New York, in 1940 with President Roosevelt. So we have a long, long history. Okay, now, back to the questions. By the forming of U.S. Northern Command in 2002, does the U.S., and this is again a question you all are going to have to ask yourself, does the U.S. now have the will, means, and tools to do North American defense and security without Canada's help, assistance, or input, okay, by the forming of this command? Also, by not accepting the U.S. Department of Defense invitation in April 2002 to either join Northern Command or transform NORAD, and then in May of 2006, when the NORAD agreement was to be re-ratified, the Binational Planning Group made some recommendations to transform this thing, and there were some Canadians that I interviewed, senior people, that felt it was time to transform this organization to meet the new security threat. By not doing any of this, are you exacerbating the very thing that you're trying to protect, which is your sovereignty? In other words, if you start giving something up, your partner is going to start to act on its own. So this is a question you have to ask. By not engaging, by not doing this, and I heard folks last night, I asked this question. They said, well, say Quebecers don't care about this or that. What does it mean to Canada? Well, if you, in a relationship, in any kind of strategic collaborative arrangement, if a partner doesn't show an interest, then the other is going to start taking over. Okay? So the very thing you're trying to protect, you may be exacerbating the situation by not engaging. So I don't know. See, I don't know the answers to these yet. These are the questions you have to ask yourself. So are you losing your voice in this partnership? You don't want to do that in any situation, a business relationship, a government relationship. So the question is it not better for Canada to embrace large-scale change as an active partner in the relationship rather than being pushed on along by events? Does embracing large-scale change, such as transforming this whole NORAD agreement and organization, automatically equate to a loss of voice and sovereignty of Canada? Again, these are questions you have to ask. And I'm, as an American, saying, okay, think about these things. Since October 2002, is Canada being handed its hat when it comes to hemispheric defense, specifically North American defense? Reminds me of in the movie Contact, and Jodie Foster's talking to this H.R. Haddon's kind of a Howard Hughes person, and he says, I'm going to give you some help here because you're sort of being dealt out here. And she says, well, I didn't know I was being dealt out of the game. He says, well, if you're not being dealt out, you're being handed your hat. All right, and is this starting to occur? With Northern Command, are you being handed your hat? Does the next evolutionary step in hemispheric defense involve the expansion of this partnership from binational to trinational? I'm talking about Mexico. Now that's a whole other cultural wicket that you would have to overcome. I mean, the history between the United States and Mexico is very, very different than the history between Canada and the United States. Trust. Put yourself now, role reversal. Pretend you're the superpower and U.S. is you. So change roles. If you were Canada, in other words, you were the U.S., look back through U.S. eyes at yourself, how you're behaving, how you're acting. Would you want your partner to act that way? So change roles. You be the U.S. and look back at yourselves through those eyes. It's called perspective change, looking through different lenses. And lastly, the challenge here, how does Canada balance protecting its sovereignty while simultaneously maintaining its voice and say in this strategic and defense partnership that started in 1940, while nurturing trust and ensuring that it's not being handed its hat? Now, I've detected a fundamental change. Has there been any movement? Yes. This is out of the Gazette in Colorado Springs. You see, this says NORAD moving out of the mountain. Now, I can't get into all this, but why? You have to answer that question yourself, why? But the important thing here in the article is that Admiral Tom Keating, and this is his words, he said, broached an even bigger possibility when he was talking to the press down in Colorado Springs. He said that there's a possibility of combining U.S. homeland defense, the U.S.-Canadian NORAD partnership, and Canada's new command into a single new North American structure. So maybe the seeds planted by the Binational Planning Group, this is kind of one of the recommendations. Maybe the seed coat's starting to crack in a tiny little plant. The new relationship is starting to come out. So, but time and politics will only tell which way this pendulum will swing. Thank you.